Hello, everyone. I'm Dirk, and I want to talk about trust and why I see trust as the foundation of DevOps. So any DevOps initiative, transformation you are doing is most likely hard or maybe even supposed to fail if you don't work in a trust-based model. And that's what this talk is all about. I'm Dirk. I work for SAP since about 16 years. Currently, my role there is to be a so-called cloud quality coach. So everything that is somehow cloud-related, agile working methods, testing strategy, deployment pipelines, DevOps culture, DevOps tools, if you want to say. All this thing is what we do while we consult internal teams into do the cloud thing. Before that, basically until May, I was 6.5 years technical operations lead for SAP's ride-sharing app, 2Go. The cool thing about 2Go was, it still is, it is the first SAP product in SAP's history which managed it to deliver on a daily basis value to the customer. Coming from an organization that used to do on-premise software and ship like every year or so, that was a big thing, going from a year down to daily. A year on-premise and then down to daily shipments in the cloud. I do talks like this one. I have 2 kids, I have 1 wife, I enjoy sailing, I enjoy photography, and if you want to reach out to me, please do so by using my Twitter handle, which is @Dirk. Speaking about SAP, if you have no idea what SAP does, I didn't have when I joined there. I know they were doing some kind of business stuff. That's what most people relate SAPs to, right? Some kind of ERP business thing from the small enterprise up to the large enterprise, doing your financials, HR, SCM, SRM, all this magic. That's what our core is, but we have about 1,500 products. So we do have ride-sharing software, we do have ticketing software for events, we do have short message gateway. If you send me a short message, it's pretty likely that you touch one of our software. If you're one of these guys who still buys MP3 in some stores, most likely the payment that is done there is done by an SAP system. We have a pretty cool cloud platform that you could use based on Cloud Foundry. So there's a lot of things. What I basically try to tell you is we are a big shop. That's the mothership, that's the headquarter, and if you want to come by, this is where my office is, and you can say hello. So it's about cloud these days, and for the enterprises, this is a big thing, and it means a big transformation, and everyone understands that we need to change. But the ideas on how to do that are quite different. So basically, many of those functional silos come up with own ideas how to be more agile, more cloudy kind of thing. And it's all good, nothing bad doing design thinking, do it. But as we are all DevOps people, right, we look into that and oh, that's optimizing the silos, that's nice, but doesn't really fix your problem. Because we want to overcome silos, we want to tear down silos, or at least somehow foster the communication and collaboration between silos. Because I often see that there's a trust problem between silos, and you have to create a trusted network between all the departments, between everyone. Otherwise, any DevOps transformation is going to be hard. Now you might say, okay, trust might be a thing, but we do have other problems, isn't it? Why is trust so important? Why is this guy talking about trust? We do have maybe problems in our organization, but why is trust such a special one? Because trust is the root of all that's evil, if you don't have trust. If you don't have trust, it's the mother of all problems. You get all kinds of other problems on top of it for free, and you might have problems that you don't relate to trust problems, but if you nail it down, you will see, or drill it down, you will see, oh, it's somehow related to trust. There's a book by Patrick Lencioni, which is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, where he investigates, you might say, high-performing team, low-performing teams and their culture, and he comes with these 5 dysfunctions in the culture of teams, and he says, most of the problems that teams have in their culture arise from an absence of trust. If you don't have trust, people don't go into controversial discussions. They avoid conflicts. If people don't go into conflicts, they have no commitment on whatever has been decided in those discussions. They avoid any accountability, and they basically don't care about the results. Those people aren't idle. You see them around. They do stuff. But it's not in first place that they do stuff for the team. They do stuff for their career, for their very personal ego kind of thing. So trust is a thing, but how can we build trust or foster trust? Well, first, I think we have to define what trust is. And if you have no idea what trust is, well, what something is, we go and ask Professor Wikipedia. Wikipedia says, well, definitions of trust typically refer to a situation characterized by the following aspects. One party, truster, is willing to rely on the actions of another party, trustee. In a situation is directed into the future. It's pretty comprehensive. It's all right what is there. It's just take some time to read it and to understand it. I found a definition personally for myself which I found easier to remember. It comes from Dr. Tway, and it says, trust is the state of readiness for an unguarded interaction with someone or something. And according to Dr. Tway, trust is constructed from 3 base elements. First is the capacity of trust. It's something to do with how we perceive trust in the past. If I entered a tram system in Amsterdam, and it used to work for me all the time, I gain, with every ride I do with the tram system, I gain more trust in it. So something that comes from the history with someone or something. Then the perception of competence. I have to feel that person to whom I should trust in, I must feel that this person is competent in what he or she is doing. If I don't feel competent in the tram driver, I wouldn't enter the tram. And the third thing is the perception of intentions. Even though all my experiences with the tram system so far were good, it was reliable, it was safe, and all the drivers, they had the competence to drive the tram. Maybe I wouldn't enter the tram system if I, for some reasons, have any doubts in the intention of the tram driver the next time, because he or she might not bring me from A to B for whatever reasons. So if you want to have trust, it's always like, how was trust in the past? Do I feel competence in that other person or group? And do I see good intentions in them? Can we measure trust? Maybe is there a litmus test for trust? How can we see trust in an organization? And for me, in my experience, you can see whether an organization works in a trust-based model is when you see speed in an organization. If you see speed in decision-making, in execution, in deployment times, in time to recovery, it's most likely that this organization is working on a trust-based model, rather than on a command and control-based model. Every command and control-based model is way slower than trust. There's another great book, Stephen Covey, The Speed of Trust. It's basically full of examples and definitions of how speed or how trust can speed up your organization. And speed is so important, right? I personally see it in the last discussions about DevOps and conferences that I follow up, that it's going more away from technical discussions. I mean, years ago we discussed about deployment pipelines and containers and all these things, and it's still there and it will always be there. But it's more and more coming in this cultural thing. I assume that this is because we more or less solve the technical problems. We can deploy within sub-seconds to the productive system, or more and more of us can do that. And now we see that, wow, now the technical issues are solved, but our organization doesn't keep up with the pace. Now we have that feedback very fast, but what do we do with that? Is the organization agile enough to pick that up? And if you want to have a fast organization, not only a fast technical stack, you need to have trust, because trust equals speed. So how can we build trust? Honestly, I have no idea. No idea at all. I was in Zurich, DevOps Days Zurich some weeks ago, and there was an open space and it came to trust. And there was one participant who said, I think you can't create trust, you can only destroy it. And I think this is perfectly right. The only thing that you can do is you can create an environment that fosters trust. And so here are my 3 pillars, or my 3 advices that I would do, or that I do in my company, how you foster trust in an organization. One thing that is important is team size. Why? Because team size is directly related to communication. And if you want to establish a trustful environment, you need to have good communication. And communication is bound to team size. We know that since the 70s, when Fred Brooks wrote his famous book, The Mystical Man Months. Everyone who is somehow into project management or management, people management, haven't read this book. Shame on you. It's published 75, you had plenty of time to read it. So now go read it. Basically, the baseline, what Brooks says, it's adding manpower to a late software project makes it even later. And it comes down to that's basically all a problem of communication. If you add more and more people into a team, communication overhead takes more and more over. And basically, with every new team member, it just goes up by the square how many communication channels you have. So if you have 3 persons, you have 3 communication lines. At 4, it's 6 connections, and 5, it's 10 connections. So communication is a thing. And team size is a thing, but what is a good maximum amount of how large could a team be? And here helps a psychologist, or to be precise, an anthropologist, an evolutionary psychologist, that was hard, called Robin Dunbar. And he came up with that proposal. He suggested a cognitive limit to the number of people to whom one can maintain stable relationships to. Now, what does that mean? Dunbar found out that the average person, so all of us, have a limit, doesn't have to do anything with intelligence or so, it's just a cognitive limit in the brain of how many stable relationships we can maintain. Everything exceeding that number is not to be considered a stable relationship. And funny enough, this number is pretty exactly about 150. How come? From where does he know it? If you look into the villages, for example, of Stone-Aged Man, they could host a population of about 115 persons, not more, with all the Stone-Age villages we found. The smallest tactical unit of the Roman army was the so-called money pail, and it had a size of 150. You see it always in other communities, like religious group, the Hutterites, which was some immigrants to North America, mainly coming from Germany, still speak some ancient German accent. They live in so-called Bruderhof communities, where they all work and jointly live together. And it has a size at 150, and they split at 150 because they say at over 150, we cannot guarantee that every part of the community can bring in value to that community. Also, you see this in industries. You might know Gore-Tex, this membrane, this waterproof, breathable membrane that you use to make outdoor jackets and such things. The company behind Gore-Tex is an organization that splits itself up into sub-organizations or subsidiaries whenever they exceed 150. Because they say over 150, bureaucracy takes over, hierarchy takes place, and basically innovation goes down. That's pretty interesting. And for us, interesting coming from a trust background is what Dunbar also says. He says the average person has about 5 intimate friends that they can maintain, 15 trusted friends, 35 close friends, 150 casual friends, and everything exceeding that is not, in most cases, not a stable relationship, social relationship. So 15 trusted friends. That's what we want to have. Dunbar says the average person can maintain 15 stable, trustful relationships. So if you have teams of 10, if you have 2 pizza teams, whatever we call them, you're pretty golden. If your teams are larger, then most likely you run into communication problems and you run to that barrier or to that cognitive limit that Dunbar describes, and then you run into trust problems. So keep an eye on team size. The next thing is diversity. How to build up the teams. Believe it or not, even the geekiest, nerdiest, stereotype, developer person that you can imagine is a social person. Every human is. It's our species. And you have to put people in the same place. They have to socially interact with each other. They have to follow their human nature. Never underestimate the power of an evening beer with your colleagues. I think we experienced that the last 2 days, right? That brought us closer together. Never underestimate that. And never put people that work on the same product into different locations. And never put those silos miles and miles away. Never underestimate the gaps in time and space that you create when putting people miles and miles apart. No collaboration tool can bridge that. Sorry, Slack. Doesn't work. I mean, it helps, but it doesn't fix it. Such a setup is actually pretty good fostering biases, fostering stereotypes. It's not only the separation in time and space, it's basically any arbitrary or virtually meaningless distinction between groups that separate people. This all comes down to the work of another psychologist called Henry Tafel. Who worked on a series about social groups and how they are created and how people feel involved into them. It's pretty interesting, and his experience revealed that virtually any meaningless distinction between groups, such as preferences for a painting or the color of a shirt, can trigger a tendency to favor one's own group to the expense of others. Because we are a social species, there's a part in our brain that always tries to put ourselves into groups. We don't sign, these are informal groups, we don't sign any contract. We just feel related to persons all the time. It comes from our evolution where we always had to decide in very fast ways what happens if now there's a threatening situation to me. Who's on my side? Who can I trust? And who might be not on my side? So we always try to seek groups. And it's only in our brains. The other person might not feel that we are in a group, but I feel that I'm somehow related with one of you in a group because we wear the same shirt or we have the same glasses or whatever. It's something only in our brain. And you can, whether you like it or not, it's just a thing that we have to accept that it's there and understand how it works. And we can make use of that. If we put in these autonomous teams that we always speak about, then we create an attribute where the people and their brain can relate to as an attribute, like, yeah, I'm feeling related to that person because we are in the same group that builds this great product. So helping those brains to have meaningful groups that you could make use of is one way. There's a second thing about how to set up teams, and here comes in some magic. I want you to think about the most successful team that you've ever seen. It could be a sports team, it could be a rock band, or a team from a TV show, or a team from your company. Think about the best team that you've ever seen. And because I have this magical gift, I can see with my inner eye now all these images in your brain. And know what? I can see all these teams have one thing in common. They are all heterogeneous. Successful teams are always heterogeneous. That was the picture I had in my brain. A successful, heterogeneous team. Rock and roll. An A team only consisting of Murdoch wouldn't be that successful. Or think about a soccer team. Soccer team only consisting of goalkeepers. Or people with a strong left leg. Wouldn't be that successful. There is no intended relationship to the national soccer team of the Netherlands that way. So heterogeneous teams work so good because everyone can bring in their very own skills and are valued for their own skills. They can develop them further, which motivates them more, and that builds trust. The second pillar is security. People must feel to be in a secure environment to establish trust. And this comes in different flavors, and one thing is that you already know that. Failure culture is so important. We have learned latest at the university that technical resources will fail. Networks will fail. Monitors will fail. Hard disks will fail. We are prepared for that. We are not even prepared for that. We expect it. That's why we have backups. That's why we do mirror the stuff. We expect it to fail. It's deep in our brains. What's not in our brain is we don't expect so much humans to fail. And we have to overcome that. We often see success as a straight line from a beginning to a successful end of a project or whatever, as a straight line avoiding any failure. But that's not the case. Success is always the outcome of going from one failure to another and learning from that and advancing that and putting that to success. That's how it works. There's an anecdote from Thomas J. Watson, who was the first CEO of IBM. And at the time he was CEO, IBM was involved in a 10 million business opportunity, which was one of the largest deals for IBM at that time. And they assigned a new hired sales representative on that opportunity. And the sales rep, in one of the first days, he completely missed it. The $10 million opportunity was gone. And so the next day he was invited to Watson's office, and the sales rep was completely frustrated, and he expected his termination now. So he went to Watson and said, okay, I understand it was my fault, 10 millions have been gone. I guess you want to see my cancellation. And Watson didn't fire him. Watson said, no, I just spent $10 million in your education, not going to fire you. For sure, he was mad about losing $10 million. But he had the rationale to think about, well, I can fire him or I could leave him in the company. If I fire him, not of his benefit, not of my benefit. But if I leave him in the company, then we can learn from that. And leaders have this unique opportunity that they can create better than many others this secure environment, which is so important for trust. This is our CEO, the CEO of SAP. It's Bill McDermott. It's a quote from a mail he sent to every SAP employee when President Trump signed the immigration ban. And he clearly puts himself, all 85,000 employees of SAP and himself and the complete company behind these employees and says, whatever happens in your life, we're in your corner. That helps not only the persons who are affected by that immigration ban, but that helps every employee saying, okay, we have these circumstances in our life that sometimes it's a bit gusty and sometimes it doesn't go all so well, but I have an employer who I can trust in. That is on my side, that is on my corner. That's so important to have leaders that create that secure environment and that don't threaten you. That's already my recap slide. So if you want to foster trust, keep an eye on team size. Keep the team small. Ensure good communication. Make sure your team is diverse and you have them in one place so they can, again, that fosters communication and they can have the social interaction that they require. And create a secure environment. This also especially goes out to the leaders. And this is already bureaucracy. This is all the images that I used and that I didn't take. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dirk. So, yesterday we used a trick to get more questions out. So, I have a book about debugging teams, which is a really good book, by the way. And you get to pick the person who asked the best question is going to be the winner of the book. Okay. So, who has questions?
Now, how do I do that best? Okay, I can improve.
In your face. Hello. Question about the number of people on the teams. You mentioned that the number you have it there, 5, 10, 15. But that's about relationship with people, right? You have family. Well, most people have family, friends, I don't know, volleyball teams, whatever. So if I start counting people that I have trust, I go over the 15 already without talking about the people inside my company or my team. So how that meets the number that you have there, because it just goes over the number, right? Or is that by social groups? I don't get how to separate those two.
Well, first it's an average number, and it's completely fine if you have like 17 or something. But if you really count it down, is it really that you have more than a 15, or let's say 25, which would be some statistical, meaningful number which would exceed that? I personally when I counted all down to the people I really trust, it's about 15. Works pretty well for me. As I said, it's an average number. If you are higher than that, it's completely fine. And that's good.
Okay.
So.
There's a question over here. Watch out.
Yesterday it worked better. It was the barbecue yesterday.
It's still early and people might have been drinking that yesterday.
Yeah.
You got me. What about, well, actually I have sort of two questions. I mean, I work in a very large organisation where I'm dealing with many more than 15 people. And the two challenges which I see, I mean, a very good presentation, but I agree with everything you say, but the two challenges I have is, one, we're globally I'm the only one in my team in EMEA. We're hoping to get someone in Australia, but most people in the US, so we're very, very spread out, so that's a huge challenge. And then quite often with other teams, what do you do when trust is not going in the right way? So you think the other team's throwing you under the bus and you have those fallouts. How do you mend those relationships? Does it just take time? Do you have any tips?
It's you could say now I know how to create trustful organizations. Let's go and change the organization. What you would do there is you destroy all the trustful relationships that you already have. And you bring in noise or uncertainty into your organization, which is something you want to avoid. I think how do you apply that is you play with open cards. You tell them, okay, listen, that's what I think how the organization should like some years from now. And that's what we're going to do. We have natural fluctuations, especially in such large companies where people come and go. So we will try to create these autonomous teams. It doesn't work from one day to the other. still at SAP, we are into that. I mean, we have 28,000 developers, 85,000 employees. It will take us years to get there. We are on the way. Some are faster, some are slower. We are on the way. But don't do it from one day to the other. It will completely destroy everything that you've built up so far. It doesn't work like that. It's a journey.
Okay, thank you.
It's a big ship, always. These enterprises are big ships.
Thank you. Gentleman in front.
A nice short one.
Hey. Thank you for nice slides and presentation. So target is trust. Yes, great. But once you get into a situation that you see these two teams, typically Dev and Ops, need to work together, but they probably are in one location, but still they hate each other. And advices, tricks, methodologies, practices, how to fix that. Anything from your experience or whatever.
It helps bringing the people together, even if it's only for a certain amount of time. I know we do video conferences, and I don't know, we have basically name a collaboration tool and we have it. And still, nothing fosters trust or a relationship better than fly over there just a few days and talk to the people and go to a dinner with them. And then you come back and then you see, out of a sudden, even if the process would require you to open a ticket or something, do something bureaucracy in the bureaucracy and the process, people just pick up the phone and call each other because they know each other. So you have to make sure that people can, as I said, socially interact with each other. And even if you can't do this, like relocate people for the rest of their working life, but give them always the opportunity to see each other. Yes, this costs money. I'm completely aware of this. But hey, you want to have benefits from having the company spread out all over the world, then that's the other side of the coin that you need to deal with. And you need to create, you need to make these teams autonomous. As a long-term goal, as I just said, you can't just destroy the operations team there or the development team there. It's just playing with open cards, saying, okay, listen, in the next years, we're going to modify your organization that ways that we will hire operations people there. And maybe to the expense of when the developer is leaving, we put in an operations guy or a product manager or whatever is required there to create these autonomous teams. With that, you can tell them your intentions, saying, okay, listen, this is my intention. You already know now you know what we are going for, but it's not going directly, and I'm not going to fire anyone of that. I'm just using natural fluctuations and whatever happens to go in that direction. And yeah, it takes time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next question, over there.
Hi. Yeah, it's on. Thanks for the talk. I was wondering if SAP follows the 150 people rule and splits up its teams in that size. And how autonomous those 150 people would be.
Yeah. Yes, we do. And no, we do. No, we don't. It depends. Making general statements about SAP is hard. I would make general statements about 85,000 employees, 28,000 developers, and 1,500 products. And you can see how diverse that is. It's no longer this classical ERP business core. It is all kind of cloud products, a lot of acquisitions that we made in the last years. So you can't make a general statement. What I definitely can say is that we develop into this direction. It's no longer a question whether we should do DevOps. It's clear. No one has any doubt about that. The question is, how will we get into a final state of DevOps? Is there anyone? But how do we approach? When we will come to a point where we see, okay, no, we created most of the things, and that depends on basically the organizational units within SAP. We have some units that I would consider to be unicorns, like really going fast, doing everything we talk about these days here. That they are doing. And you have other teams which just started. So the variety, I always say it's a big zoo. We have everything there. But it's, as I said, it's no doubt we are going this way. When we will be there with all of us, I don't know. I have no idea. It takes years. I give you an example. My first talk was 2 years ago in Paris, DevOps Day Paris, about these daily deployments that we did. And in that talk, you can put in Vimeo or YouTube. I say that when we release, we have to fulfill 228 so-called product standards, so rules that we have to follow up with every bit we change on a productive system. That was in place at that time. Now, 2 years later, it is completely gone. It's completely vanished because we learned that these processes are just too lazy, just too slow. We need to change. And so we are currently putting the complete elephant upside down, shaking it all over, and tell him how to dance.
All right. Who's next? Watch out, watch out. When we're asking for questions, please keep your eyes up front, because else accidents will happen.
Hi, well, speaker over there. Thanks for the talk. When you build teams with a lot of trust, you can have sort of silos. What about outsiders? How to avoid, I mean, there are probably many ways. You can have a management team, you can have a development team, but new people or outsider, or they might feel like outsiders.
Yep. You will always have. That's, I mentioned Henry Tafel, and it's basically called in-group and out-group. Whenever this part of our brain, which tries to create groups all the time and people I can relate to, it always has the effect that when I create a group, I have people inside the group, and I will have people outside the group. It's just there. So now how to deal with that? And the way we approach it is that build this autonomous teams and put everyone who is somehow related to the value of or the creation of the product into one team. So you might still see functional silos in HR or legal, but that's perfectly fine. They don't have a direct, concrete impact on the product. So it's okay to have them out of the group. But it's acceptable. And the rest of the team, everyone who's related to a product, must be in the team. So everyone who does something beneficial or has a direct impact, beneficial impact on the project, program, whatever, is in the team. And that's in team, and the others are out, because it's okay. I don't need to have the closest social relationship with my HR representative. Yeah, there might be times when I need to have that because of some HR issues I have, but all the time for creating a product, I don't need to have that. So you can't put all the people in one group and say, yeah, we're all friends. It doesn't work. Then it's, again, what Dunbar says. It's 150 and then it's over. 150 stable relationships, but we are 85,000 something. That doesn't work. Still I feel related to that virtual group of SAP, to these 85,000, but I don't have a stable relationship with all of them. So I have to keep people out of that. And yep. the attribute around that is the product or the project.
Well, that's when you have different types or different groups. But I mean more like if you have a team that's tight-knit and there's a new person coming in, or there are teams that work maybe like someone mentioned before, a development team and an ops team, the anger between them or the wall between them. But if someone comes in and they see a tight-knit group already and they feel like an outsider, that was more what I'm talking about, not HR versus development.
Yeah, basically teams are immutable from my perspective. If you get one more person inside a team, you have a new team. If you put one person out of a team, you have a new team. It starts all over again. Teams are immutable. That's how I see it.
Very good. Who's next? Okay, beware, there's a microphone being thrown through the air all the way back there. So if you're anywhere in the middle, watch out. It will do 2 throws, please. What could possibly go wrong?
So, oh boy, I'm right next to the speaker. Okay, how do you repair broken relationships? Specifically, those that have gotten really antagonistic, for example, at a leadership level. So you have even the leaders of silos who have no trust relationship. Whose responsibility is that to fix, and how would you go about it?
I have no idea. Leaders are special. I mean, if you mean leaders in terms of managers, I mean, we could all be leaders, but especially when you go to higher management, it's a bit special how they form groups. There's a lot of politics in there, and I have no idea how to fix a relationship there. Honestly, don't know.
Okay, there's one over there.
I am curious that you explained some laws on a team, and you have autonomy and alignment, and when you use skill, I was intrigued to know your opinion if the same laws apply on alignment. The amount of connections you have with other teams, the amount of connections you have with community.
Can you say it again? Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you?
Yeah.
The last sentence?
I'm curious if the same rules from team diversity and security also apply to the alignment connections to other teams.
Good question. I think teams basically don't feel a trustful relationship because, as I said, they are something virtual. It's always parts of the team, so always persons who can feel this trust. It's something, as I said, it's something inside our brain. Sometimes also these informal groups, they are just exist in our brain. So I don't know honestly whether teams really can, whether you can say teams have some alignment or relationship to other teams. I think it's always humans. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Thanks.
And that was the last question. So Dirk, you need to pick a lucky winner.
Yeah. I take that gentleman over there.
All right, come on, get your prize.
I don't sign it because I didn't,
you didn't write
it. Yeah. So.
All right, thank you, Dirk.
Congratulations. Thanks.